So, good morning, and you are welcome to part two of the corporate strategy or the strategic case study that we are doing. Now, if you've been following, you realize that my first 9 lectures dealt with strategic position. And in your exam, that area alone is 40 marks. So we are left to do the 60 marks aspect of things. Now, we start off the 60 mark aspect with dealing with the strategic choices that an entity has available. The strategic choices. And that is what we are going to look at. We are going to introduce to ourselves what choices are available and what the entity can do in terms of growing into those ways and the means of growing. So let's start with the introduction to choices. Now, strategically, these are the areas we are looking at. First of all, we need to ask ourselves, all right, so let me finish it. We need to ask ourselves the choices as to how an organization at a business model or at a business level, at a business level, positions itself in relation to competitors. And mind you, it's at the business level, not the corporate level. Remember the ladder. All right. At the business level. And from there, what that we are trying to understand from that place is to how to compete in the market, how to compete with competitors, how to compete. All right. Now, how to compete, we will discuss the basis upon which they are supposed to compete. We will come back to that. The next thing available to them is choices of strategic direction. Where or which product should they pursue? So that's the question. Which products or services or industry or market should the organization pursue? This one, it means you are moving from your original place, where you are based, to go somewhere, and that is about growth. So we call this part the growth strategy. All right. So we are going to ask ourselves, should we grow with few products and markets, or we should go a little broader? So to go much broader, open up more in terms of scope. And when we talk about scope, we are talking about diversification. All right. In terms of the market and in terms of the products or services that we are giving, we are rendering. Or we should entirely create new products to enter another market. And if you are familiar with what I'm doing, you realize that this diagram that I'm trying to draw is what we call the Ansoff model. All right. And we will discuss it. Ansoff four directional models. All right. So, and lastly, what we are going to discuss, but lastly, the third one. The third one here, we are going to discuss the methods by which the entity grows. All right. So the methods by which, sorry, these strategies or these growth strategies are pursued. So are we going to grow organic? And this comes from financial management. Are we going to go by acquisition, acquiring existing entities, or we are going to go by strategic alliances, which in financial management, we call it mergers. So these are the means. All right. So this is what we are going to discuss. Because when you look at how to compete, we are looking at number one. Should we compete on the basis of cost or differentiation? Should we reduce our cost to make more profit, or we should just be different? And is competitive advantage possible for us? Is it possible? All right. Are we going to get these competitive advantage by being, let's say, being flexible? Are we going to do what we call fleet of floats? Or if it is not possible, we should just cooperate. All right. So these are the things that we are going to discuss. Now, if on the umbrella of this is that the choices as to you positioning yourself as a business unit is what we call the business strategies. The business strategies. And whenever we discuss business strategies, the focus is all about competition. So we are talking about competitive strategies. So we will pick them one by one and discuss. So choices about how you position yourself to compete. All right. So that is that. Then when we come to the direction, the choices as to of strategic direction, that we is what we call the growth strategies. Like I mentioned before, the growth strategies. So we are looking at where to actually expand ourselves to. And lastly, how to do that is what we call the strategic methods or the strategy methods. And like I outlined, we are growing organically, all right, acquiring or merging, all right. So you choose the best option available for you, all right. So the mix of it we will discuss as part of answering a practical question, all right. So now let's pick them one by one and talk about the business strategies, the business strategies, the business strategies. Now, before you analyze these business strategies, as in positioning yourself in how to compete and all these things, you must understand that the choices has to be made in the context of your strategic position. Remember what we have done already. So our first 9 lectures, all right, and the 10th lecture is purely a case where we analyze everything we do under the strategic position. So a big case, you analyze everything within it. So this serves as this part 2 begins from a lecture 11. And in this lecture 11, we are saying that when you are doing your strategic choices, all right, you must understand the key is that the strategic choices are not done in isolation. Your choice has to be made in the context of your strategic position, what we have done so far. And that is what the exam is very tricky. So if you don't understand so visit the first 9 lectures that we have done so far, because that's where everything depends on. So once you have been able to, and you are doing your choice, you have to do it in line with your strategic position. So please avoid in the analysis, in your case study analysis, avoid producing long list of observation without clarity. So what I mean is that whatever observation that you make, please link it to the strategic position. That is it. So link it properly, and that is how you can get majority of your marks. All right. So now let's look at the first part. It's in 3 parts. The first part is the business strategy. So this lecture will deal with the business strategy. Then the next lecture 12 will deal with the corporate, then the next, so like that. So the business strategy and models. In other words, I said where you position yourself as a business unit, it is all about competition. So we can call it the competitive strategy option. Okay. So here we are going to discuss it into basic form because it is all about obtaining competitive advantage. Here, a business as a unit, how do you achieve competitive advantage? And if you remember, when we were doing the position, some of the things we learned were that we need to consider the resource and capabilities. And the resource and capabilities, they are the ones that help us to sustain competitive advantage and the ones that help us to even obtain the competitive advantage itself. So parity was at one point and having the competitive advantage was also at one point. So here, the model we are going to use to discuss the business strategy where we can obtain competitive advantage is the Porter's generic strategy. So that is what we are going to discuss. And in the Porter's generic strategies, one is about cost leadership, which we will go into details. 2 is about differentiation. And Porter's, in fact, these were the two main originally, but Porter extended it with what we call niche and focus. And we will see the new trending one of the hybrid. But the Porter, the one currently is the 3 generic force that is maintained. All right. So that is the Porter's strategy. Then we will also discuss the interactive strategies. So situations whereby when you act, the competitor will act. All right. Like it's a game. You play, they play. All right. And there we are going to look at hyper competitive strategies. We are going to talk about cooperation. Do you compete? If they change, do you change? Once they make a move, do you also make a move? All right. Or you just cooperate or stay cooperate with them. Lastly, we will discuss the game theory. And this one, the best way to understand it is to watch Prison Break. Watch Prison Break, the last one. This season 5. Yeah, I think so. The last season, the last one that they did, the 5 or 6, 5. All right. So it's a chess play. Okay. All right. Now, underneath all these things, this one, and your interactive strategies, underneath this one, these business strategies. So when you talk about business strategy, these are what we are looking at. This one and this one. But what holds these business strategies are the models. Okay, so what holds this is the business model. Okay, and when we are talking about the business model, talking about the eye on value creation. Are they doing it to create value? And that is the reason. Or value configuration and what value capture. So that is the model underneath the business strategy. All right. So that is it. And so this is basically what I'm going to expand and explain. All right. So that is that in the next 40 minutes or so. All right. So therefore, let's discuss the Porter's one. Number one is the Porter's generic competitive strategies. All right. Now, what is this about? We have said that it is business strategy, and a business should position itself as a business unit. So we are looking at how a company as a business unit achieves competitive advantage. And that is the focus, is the competitive advantage in a domain of activity. Whatever you are doing. So like this tuition, UIPD, Universal, some people call, they ask what is the meaning of UIPD. It's Universal Institute for Professional Development. And I've explained before, this is not just a CA class. It's actually a university that has started, but the root is coming from professional. So there is a CA chapter, which I am the rep. All right. There is another chapter, all right, for engineering. They have their rep and all those things. So that is it. Okay, so here the focus is that we as the business unit, the CA chapter, that's the business unit. How do I ensure that we achieve competitive advantage? Because there are so many tuition centers available. Or how do I make sure you choose this one? How? How? So it's all about me trying to create value. And that is the competitive advantage. So I need to create value. All right. And that value that I'm trying to create, I need to do it in such a way that, so the value for you, all right, for users should or should or which both becomes greater than what my people, my competitors are doing. So that value I'm creating should be greater than one, the cost of supplying them, because I can't do it at a loss. All right. So if I'm teaching, I can't teach at a loss. But what I'm doing to should be superior to that of my rivals, my competitors. All right. So that is that. The thing that I'm doing should be, it should profit me. All right. But it should be able to compete with my rivals. So in dealing with competitive advantage, trying to understand the whole concept of competitive advantage, it's all about me making sure that my customers see sufficient value. So that is that. Customers obtain sufficient value. So I'll ask you if you do obtain that kind of value when you watch my videos. So do you get the value such that you are prepared, you the customer, to pay a premium of my cost or over my cost? So if what I'm doing is costing me 100 cedis, am I creating value enough to you such that you are going to pay, if I put a premium of 50 cedis, you are going to pay that 50 cedis for me to price it at 150? Like the way data is very, very expensive, and I'm doing this thing for you in the span of 3 to 4 months every day. I have to buy data for you, particularly case study. I have to buy data around 400 Ghana cedis, a bundle. that will run for the entire thing. And now use time to teach. So if I now put 150 Ghana cedis to it as a value, are you willing to pay the 550 Ghana cedis to join the class? I have to be able to get you to that level. And at the same time, as I'm doing the 550, it should also, that 550 should also be able to create value than my competitors. All right. So you see, sometimes you ask yourself, whoa, so this guy is losing. That's why at the intervention stage, you need to pay like a 200 Ghana cedi supplement. So in all, when you join this class, you are looking at paying a 750 kind of technical. All right. And of course, how do I make sure I compete? And we will talk about that, adding complements to that sometimes. Like this one, I make sure that I give you a free book, soft copy. And that is something I will discuss, complements. All right. So that is that. I'm just trying to use these things so that you understand. So, in all, what Potter is trying to tell us using his three generic model, which I will go into explain in the form of a quadrant, is that Porter is trying to tell us that if I can lower my cost, so being a cost leader, so that is a cost leader than competitors, will it draw people to me? Or if I make my class very special, differentiation, product, or the way this is service, this class is a service. So I differentiate it from the way it is done from competitors. And please, that would mean that if I am differentiating them, it takes us back to what we learned in strategic position, where we talked about the resource and capabilities. All right, you will need it to develop a new thing from what others are doing. You know, people are advancing in technology. Some of the tuition center you join, you use an app, the videos are there, and all those things. Okay, so how am I doing mine? So we will get to that, right? So based on that, Potter now decided to add scope to it. He added scope based on scope of customers. So based on the scope of customers, Potter decided to go to try and segment narrow customers, where he did narrow customer segment like the youth market, the adult market, all right, that kind of thing, and the broad, all right, where we talk about geography, all right, so location. So in all, Potter had it's kind of four, but we stick to three, all right. So let's look at the quadrant and let's discuss the issues inside the quadrant. Okay. So this is what Potter says. You have competitive advantage. So we have this quadrant. All right. So here we are looking at a lower cost, and this side is differentiation. And we are looking at the broad target at this quadrant, and we are looking at narrow target. So this is the competitive scope. All right. So Porter is saying that here in this quadrant, we have cost leadership, where you are in the lower cost and a broad market or a broad target. Two, here it talks about differentiation. And this side, which is 3A, lower cost, narrow target, is do cost focus. And here, 3B, we have differentiation focus. And so I'm going to expand these things. Differentiation focus. So let's pick it one by one. The cost leadership. All right. And this is how I'm going to do it. If I pick the cost leadership number one, what is the aim? What is the cost leadership all about? The aim of the cost leadership is to become the lowest cost organization in that domain of activity. So in all the CA classes, I can choose to become the lowest cost tuition center, or the lowest cost organization or entity in the domain of activity. The domain of activity is the tuition, what everybody is doing, right? The tuition. Meaning that I need to find a way to cut costs. I need to find a way to cut costs. And if I'm able to cut costs, I will be able to cut the selling prices. So maybe I need to go to MTN. When I go to MTN, I tell them that this is what I do and I need a package and this is how much I buy, and I would want to try and negotiate a data bundle. So that is one way. So that leads to the question, how? How? How do I achieve that? So maybe, so number one, like I said, I can go to my input providers. So where the inputs are. For example, I can choose to be at a place where the internet is a little slower in terms of cost, but fast in speed, location where I live. So in businesses, you have those people who are located, you have countries where labor is intensive. So you go to locate labor intensive for labor intensive operations. You will see them operating in countries. And that is what America started doing, whereby they started putting their manufacturing entities in somewhere India, South Africa, and China. Why? Because for there, they will get the labor. And it started coming into Africa. You saw it. Or get proximity to your raw materials, because that is input. So if you can get proximity to raw materials, it will decrease your input cost. That's why the farming community complain, because where the farm is and the logistics to get to where they are is a problem. So that's why it makes cost. So maybe I need to go to MTN. So when I go to MTN, I'll ask them for a specialized data package for the class that I'm doing. Now, let me ask you now, corporate strategy is 550 cedis. So you don't get to have all these videos available. Some of them you will not get. All right. So especially how I do the practical aspect of solving the question. You get a bite of it when you watch the macro environment, but you don't really get to have the bite of it. Prepare yourself enough for the pre-scene so that you can analyze it well to be able to do other you if you don't do those things, you always be depending on people's analysis and all those things. But you can also do it. So let me ask you, do you think I need to do that for MTN? And if I reduce the price to, let's say, 450 or to 500, what will be your reaction? So let me know in the comments, all right? So let me know. All right. But not only that, I can also decide to do economies of scale. Economies of scale. I can decide to increase production with the internet that I have. So increase production. So the little that I have, maybe like my job requires, I can use it for the University of Ghana undergrad. Still the data. So I let them join the class where I'm teaching something that is also useful to them. The UG masters. So if I'm teaching something in the ICA that they are part and it's allowed, I can, even my UCC students. All right. So so that what will happen is that the fixed cost, you see, the fixed cost for operating using the data for the ICAG student is the same. It doesn't change. So if I bring in these people, what will happen is that it will decrease my average cost, average variable cost. That is what will happen. It will rather decrease my average variable cost. And that is what we expect in economies of scale. All right, increase in production to reduce the average variable cost. Because if I teach one person, it's the same data. If I teach billions of people at that same time, it is also the same data. So if I do that, will I now be able to reduce my cost? So the how I can decide to reduce my cost. So ladies and gentlemen, if I have, this is what I do. I really don't like having plenty students. Normally, I want to cap the student at 20 students because I want to get time for them. So if I do this, you realize that what happens is that the intervention is free usually for these 20 set of people. So what you don't know is that when you are paying the 550, you stand the potential of having a free intervention. So technically, how much are you paying since you wanted me to reduce the price? How much are you paying? You are paying 350 Ghana cedis. So where do you want to belong? Where do you want to belong? So that is the way it is. Now, another way I can try to reduce my cost is to use my experience in teaching. Experience. So if something we do in man accounting is called the learning curve. No, you get experience the more you keep doing one thing. All right. So you get the experience and it reduces the number of hours you spend on teaching a topic. You know where the examiner has his focus on. So you don't open it too much. You stick to where the examinable areas are, like what I'm trying to do to you now. All right. So you can also design your product and your processes very well so that in your entity, certain duplications are cut off so that you can what have a reduction in your cost process. Okay, so that you can now have what we we call cost leadership. So that is how you can have the cost leadership. That is how. But please, the cost leadership that we are talking about, it's not like you just want to reduce cost. No, no, no. We are saying that you are the lowest cost among all the competitors. So in the case, please watch out among all competitors. Not like you just reduce cost with just one competitor. No, 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 no. And the fact that you are lowering cost also doesn't mean that there shouldn't be quality. So there must be quality. Quality. There must be quality. So we are talking about total quality management. You see, I'm telling you that everything we are doing is in man accounting and it is in financial report, financial management. So that is basically it. So these are the options you probably have. These are your options. And probably the option I have too, which I have already decided to strategize on one. All right. So if you take your average price, your selling price, or the average selling price of the industry, so the industry average selling price. Now, you, an entity, your option is to be at parity, can decide to be at parity with your competitors. We call it equivalent. So if everybody is selling it at 1 Ghana cedi, you too, you are selling it at 1 Ghana cedi. But your cost leading to the selling price of 1 Ghana cedi is reduced. So let me show you something. This is it. All right. Or let me even bring it here. So it's either you pull parity or you go by means of proximity. I mean, being close to the competitors in terms of pricing. All right. So you cut here, you are cutting prices slightly. To be a cost leader, right? But please, you are still maintaining quality. So this is it. If this is the average price in the industry, all right, this is what happens. You can decide to be here, the average competitor. So this is your cost. Then you add something small on the same line, all right, and this part is your profit. So you are selling at a profit, all right, but you see where your profit margins are. All right. You can also be a cost leader. Cost leader with parity. When I say with parity, it means you are selling at the same price. Okay. You are selling at the same price, but you have tried to reduce your cost. So your cost reduces, but your price, you still sell at that same price. So your reduced cost increases your profit. Have you seen it? Yeah. So that is that. You can also decide to be a cost leader with proximity. With proximity. What does it mean? It means that you are going to cut the cost slightly, right? And when you cut the cost slightly, you are going to sell also below what your people are selling. So here you can have your cost as this. But so this is your cost, but your profit is still below the average price. So you are proxy to the competitors. All right. So that one can give you some benefit. But you can also decide to differentiate. And that one you don't mind. You don't mind. You can even, and in the differentiation, what will happen is that your cost is even way, way above the average, but still put some profit line on top. So you know that there are some cars whose prices go way, way beyond the average prices of cars, but people buy them because of luxurious reasons. All right. So these are your options. These are your options. So now, what are the benefits? And the disadvantages that you may find in using this approach. All right. Now, the benefits are that you see that when you decide to go the cost leadership approach, you get better margins. So, if you're a business, think about this via lower costs. Two, you have the ability to undercut competitors' prices. What do you see again? There is, it creates barriers of entry. Remember Porters? Because the cost is low and reduces attractiveness to substitutes. Because quality is still maintained, you will gain market share clearly. But on the other side, you doing this means that you cannot go back anymore because you've cut price. So when the competitors react, you cannot go back anymore. No fallback if if cost leadership is lost. So if a competitor responds, can you go back again? Then it means that you are putting yourself into trouble. All right. And the more you do this kind of wars, what will happen is that larger rivals, foreign competitors, overseas people may enter into the market. Why? Because we all know that their cost is cheaper. So strong currency makes import very, very cheaper. Now, if you listen to the president, take note, strong currency makes import cheaper. Because if one Ghana cedis is equal to $1, why will people buy things in Ghana? Because already the mentality is that the thing in the foreign country is far better than the one in Ghana. Why will people buy from Ghana? They will import more. So the president of Ghana, Mahama, once said that this exchange rate that is going down, it is also dangerous. All right. So because even if Ghana produces, the culture that it has not been changed to make people buy Ghana products. So that's what culture web talks about. Culture. So look at the culture in your strategic position in determining all these things, whether you cut costs and do all those things. It's an analysis. All right. So be careful. Be very, very careful. All right. So when you are doing this, but this one is suitable. The suitability is for large companies who are with economies of scale. All right. It's for large organization. If you are a mini organization, be careful. All right. Then we go to the next one is differentiation, right? What does Porter's differentiation talk about? Now, what is the aim? The aim is to be unique. All right. That is that. You are unique along same dimension, or that is that provides sufficient value to your customer. So you are unique, you provide sufficient value, like the Teslas, and that will allow you to price high, you price premium because you are distinct. So to offer that product that cannot be matched by your competitors, that is what the differentiation is about. You are doing something that cannot be matched by your competitors. And because they cannot be matched by my competitors, I can now charge the premium. So I believe that this tuition center also have the hybrid. So that is it. We there are some courses you cannot compare the way it is taught here anywhere. Yeah. Like this one, I've taken my time to analyze corporate reporting, advanced audit, taxation, FR, FM. I mean, all the courses basically. All right. So how do you do this? How? How? Number one, we are looking at the products and the service attributes. And we add something to it. So we add unique features. Let me give you one unique feature we do here. Because of experience, I'm able to connect some students to work platform so that they can get job. All right. So some of the students will testify to you, yeah, you can get job because of the connections I have. There are big men in class. I have young ones that are coming. Through conversations, I am able to give them some stuff. All right. So example of what entity do is to add color, design, speed, all right, taste, and all these ones are tangible things that you can add. They are tangible differences. Okay. So, and don't forget, yes, it's simply saying innovation and introduction. Bring something new, introduce it to us, then advertise it. All right. So what you see is that this differentiation thing, it allows for higher prices. And because it's innovation and things, it comes with a cost. It is costly because R&D is not cheap. All right. Again, what can we do? Can also maintain customer relationship. All right. To be responsive to the customers. That is why I say that it's very difficult getting usually plenty students because I respond to every question that I give, assignment that I give to my student. They answer it, I check the answer, I give feedback. All right. So you do these things, responsiveness, after sales servicing, my reputation is something that I don't joke with. Reputation. So you go into it doing your branding and knowledge market. Have knowledge of the market. And this one is something, the next thing is something that I've already mentioned. Complement. All right. So you do complement product. That's why iPhone people do. iPad, iPod, iTunes, all those things. They bring complement. All right. So they bring in something to complement the product that they have. All right. So that is that. Now, what are some of the benefits of doing this one? Of course, you build brand, and most importantly, loyalty. You get higher margins because your premium is getting you to get those things. But it reduces the power of the customers. Now, whatever iPhone the Apple people bring in complementary to the iPhone, all those people who are using iPhone, they go and buy. If you don't buy, you are a cake. And they are always changing the iPhone. iPhone this, iPhone 16 Pro Max. All right. So that is a marketing strategy. But when there is recession in the market, it doesn't work well. In recession, it performs poorly because people will want to, save money in those periods. All right. Now, in the long run, it's competed. So you see people, Samsung competing and all those things. So it needs constant innovation. Constant innovation. People have seen that all people use the iPhone for is pictures. And so techno is coming up, everybody is coming up, all right, with nicer pictures. So there's fewer barriers of entries. People can enter into it. All right. So that is that. And you cannot do much volumes, it's smaller volumes because your this thing is to some specific people. So this one is suitable for innovative companies with large marketing budgets. Okay. We are innovative entities with large marketing budget. The third thing is the focus strategy. The focus strategy, what is the aim? You position yourself to a particular niche, not everybody, a particular niche. The target is a narrow segment, all right? Narrow, very narrow, narrow segment. So the two variants are the cost and also the differentiation in the niche. So how do we go about this? You focus on cost. You identify some category of people and you focus on cost. And for some people too, you differentiate. You apply differentiation focus by giving them meeting their own specific needs. All right. That is that. Okay. So basically that is that. So in the focus strategy, and I think when I end with this one, then I will continue doing the strategic clock and the interactive strategy in another video, because I don't want the videos to go beyond 1 hour. So let's look at the focus strategy. Available. So we have distinct segment needs. These are where there's distinctiveness in that niche, what they need. So if segment is distinct, if it erodes, it becomes a problem. Look at the Tesla Motors. It's very, very distinct. Very, very distinct. So you serve those people's needs. All right. Then we have the distinct segment value chain. We are looking at a set of inbound logistics. Do you remember? Inbound logistics. Distinct inbound logistics. So the fashion, the brand. You see, this one is strengthened if you have distinct value chain. That will be very difficult for people to copy. All right. It's very difficult for people to copy. This one, if it erodes, you are in problem, because it will be difficult to defend yourself against your competitors. All right. So then the last one, we are looking at the viable segment economics. What are we saying? We are saying that whatever you are doing, the segment can easily become small to serve economically as people demand. All right. So here you are looking at the feasibility and profitability, so you don't make loss. All right. So have an inbound logistics that will be very difficult or costly for rival to actually do it. Okay. So that will give you are special for a specific group of people and niche of people. The benefits you get from these things, this niche, the benefits are that you develop brand loyalty. You don't do it with everybody. There was a time I was doing the class for the aged. I see a class for the aged, those who are like 50 years. Yeah, it was short class so that they can pick it up. And that one brought me to the known. All right. Here, there's little competition because your value chain, your inbound things, nobody can compete it. All right. So that is that. That is that. And it's a first step towards other generic strategies. Because you can decide to reduce the price to bring people in. The only challenge with this one, the only challenge or the threat is that you don't have huge volumes because of the nature. So we have low volumes. All right. And fewer barriers of entries. Because it means that the remaining people that are there, people can come in for them. All right. It attracts cost leaders. So this one is good for small businesses, suitable for small businesses. But these small businesses must have entrepreneurial flair, okay, so that they can challenge being innovative. All right. Now, in all these things that we talked about, the cost leadership, the differentiation, the focus, if you don't check it well, you will be stuck in the middle. You will be stuck in the middle. these three generic strategies that we have discussed, if you don't check it very well, so we have cost leadership, we have differentiation, and we have what? Focus in terms of the niche. Some people may not be where to belong. You will be stuck, and that is what we call the hybrid. You are stuck. Hybrid combines some here, somewhere here. You will be stuck, and that is what we call the hybrid. All right. And how does it happen? So you have organizational separation. So organizational separation means that you have one part of the SBU doing cost leadership, another part of the SBU doing differentiation, another part doing this. All right. So you see that this one, you have to have technological and managerial innovation to be able to do that. All right. And you have to be careful because there are competitors or there are the competitive failures. You can fail because you are not there at one part of it. All right. So that is that. Potter's generic strategy, cost leadership, differentiation, the niche, and I've explained scenarios for each one of them. So in the part two of this same business strategy, I'm going to look at the strategic clock, then I will look at the interactive strategies where the gameplay. All right. So if you are reading a case where it's made mention of your entity, there's another competitor. When you do a move, the competitor to do a move. All right. So at what point in that hyper competitive market you decide to cooperate or move on with a game theory concept? So we will do that. Underneath all these things is value creation, value configuration, and value capture. Those are the models. All right. So I'll look at it in the part two of the video. Then we will go to the direction where we talk about the corporate strategy. We use the ANSOF, all right, the ANSOF model. Then managing portfolios. We talk about the PCG matrix, the portfolio metric, the parenting matrix, and the McKinsey direction. So you do that. Then on the other side of that, we will go and look at acquisition and merger or growing organically, or another term for strategic alliances. And that will solve these strategic choices. All right. That is it. So see you in the part two of this video. My name is Thomas. And thank you, the guys. All right. Bye-bye.